Here's a mind-bending fact. For the first time in centuries, China is no longer the most populated country in the world. In 2023, India officially overtook China with around 1.46 billion people, while China's numbers started falling after peaking at about 1.42 billion. That's shocking because for most of modern history, China has been the global giant in terms of population. So here's the big question. Why is China's population shrinking while India's is still growing? And more importantly, what does this mean for their future and for the world? Stick around because the answers involve government policies, family choices, economics, culture, and some twists you probably didn't expect. Let's rewind a bit. Back in 1949, when the People's Republic of China was founded, the country's leaders were worried about overpopulation. Fast forward to 1980, and China introduced one of the most famous or infamous social experiments in history, the one-child policy. For over 3 decades, most Chinese couples were legally restricted to having just one child. The goal? Slow down population growth and prevent economic collapse. It worked, but maybe too well. On the other side, India took a very different path. After independence in 1947, India's population exploded. From around 350 million back then, it has more than quadrupled. While India did try some family planning programs in the 1970s, nothing as strict as China's was ever enforced. So while China was controlling births, India's population kept rising rapidly. That contrast explains the starting point of today's story. Now, let's look at where both countries stand today. India, 1.46 billion people, still growing, but the speed of growth has slowed down. Fertility rate is around 2.0 births per woman, slightly above replacement level in rural areas, but dipping below in many cities. China, 1.42 billion at its peak, but now declining. Its fertility rate? Just 1.0 to 1.2 births per woman, far below the replacement rate of 2.1. That's a huge difference. To give you perspective, if every woman in a country has only one child on average, the population can shrink by half in just a couple of generations. So, the numbers already hint at what's happening. China is shrinking, while India is still climbing, though it too will eventually slow. So why is China shrinking so quickly? First, the obvious reason, the legacy of the one-child policy. Entire generations grew up with the idea that one child is normal. Even after China relaxed the policy in 2015, first allowing 2 children and then 3, couples didn't suddenly rush to have bigger families. Why? Because raising kids in China today is expensive. Take Shanghai as an example. Studies show that raising a child there from birth to age 18 can cost nearly $100,000, not including college. That's more than many middle-class families can even imagine. Add to that the intense competition in schools, rising housing costs, and long work hours, and many couples say, one kid is enough, or maybe none at all. Then there's gender imbalance. Thanks to decades of preferring boys under the one-child system, China now has millions more men than women. By some estimates, nearly 30 million Chinese men may never find a spouse. That alone reduces potential births. And don't forget the aging factor. China's median age is now around 39 years, compared to just 28 in India. That means fewer young couples, more elderly, and a workforce that is shrinking. Here's the surprising twist. China tried to stop the shrinking by encouraging families to have more kids. They offer tax breaks, subsidies, even housing perks. But it's not working. Because once society adapts to small families, it's very hard to reverse the trend. Is shrinking. Fewer young workers to power factories, build infrastructure, or support innovation. The elderly population is exploding, putting massive pressure on healthcare and pensions. Economists warn of a coming silver tsunami that could slow growth dramatically. For India, the picture looks brighter, at least for now. It has what's called a youth dividend. Millions of young workers entering the job market. This could drive economic growth, attract investment, and even make India the world's largest workforce hub. But here's the catch. Only if jobs are created fast enough. Otherwise, millions of unemployed youth could turn this dividend into a liability. Think of it as a double-edged sword. And now let's zoom out. What does this population shift mean for the world? For decades, China was the world's factory, thanks to its endless supply of cheap labor. But as the workforce shrinks and wages rise, companies are already shifting manufacturing to countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh, and yes, India. India, with its young workforce, could become the next global hub for industries like textiles, technology, and even electronics assembly. Geopolitically, this shift could change power dynamics. A shrinking China might become more inward-looking, while a rising India could play a bigger role in global affairs. And don't forget migration. Countries like Canada, Australia, and much of Europe are desperate for young immigrants to balance their aging populations. Where will they look? Likely towards India, not China. So what does the future look like? According to United Nations projections, India's population may peak around 1.7 billion by 2060, then slowly decline. China, meanwhile, could drop below 1 billion by the year 2100. That's a staggering fall for a country that once seemed unshakably dominant. But here's the twist. Having more people isn't automatically better. What really matters is how a country manages its people, their education, their jobs, their health. A smaller but wealthy and productive population can often do better than a larger but struggling one. So let's bring it all together. China's population is shrinking because of the one-child policy's legacy, high costs of raising kids, and an aging society. India's population is still growing because it's younger, more diverse in fertility patterns, and hasn't yet aged the way China has. But the bigger question is population size a blessing or a curse? Would you rather have a shrinking but rich country like China, or a growing, youthful country like India with all its challenges? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because the debate over population, growth, and power is just getting started.